Well, hello, welcome to Drawing with Fire. I'm Valerie, and we're going to jump right into doing this skull. That's what this whole video is. What I'm showing very quickly is the area that I changed my mind on. Go dark, because if you don't, it's going to really confuse you even more, and that's what I'm showing. Go for those dark areas just to start off. So right now we're going to look at the elements that we need to pay attention in this video, and that's lighting, shape, and detail. The lighting is coming from the left side of our skull. The shape is an orb, not a circle, so we need the depth within that. And the details, there's flowers and swirls all over this, so we really need to pay attention to getting those to stand out. So we're going to jump right into the eyes and nose socket. I started that on the live, and so I'm going to show a little bit of the live, and then we'll go over to me finishing. What you'll see is me jumping around, so you'll see areas filled in, areas not filled in, and that's just to help make this flow a little bit better. Now, I'm going in a circular motion around the orb, the socket, because it is round, but it's also got depth, so we got to make sure we follow the direction of how a socket is. So you can see more filled in. This is me doing it after the live, and I'm filling in and trying to put texture with a small ball tip. This is basswood. The basswood I'm using is linked down in the description. It's 3/8 inch thick, and I'm using that because there's going to be a lot of darks. I don't want it to warp. So I'm using a lot of little circles. Let's see, we zoomed in a little bit, a lot of circles, and I'm trying to get that texture and to make sure that I get the right tone. Now, I'm not going 100% of what it's going to be for the final burn. I'm just blocking in. This whole skull right now is going to be blocking in, so I know what is what needs no burning because it's raised and has more light, in areas that are darker. So I'm just following the directions. So I'm going more curved because that's how an orb would be. Think of any orb and it has the very hard to explain. And I've now moved up to the extra large ball tip to get bigger area filled in at once. And I think I've got that on 4 because I am burning a little hotter in this area. So I'm going in circles, but then I'm also going in a curve, not a straight line, it's a curve back and forth in order to get the feeling of one area being darker and then lightening as we go. And it'll be the same for the socket of the nose and the other eye. So we'll just keep going back and forth. Part of the light was around the flowers was filled in during the live, and that's later on in the video. And I've now moved over to the medium ball tip because it's a smaller tip to get into this smaller area. So I'm going in ovals and I'm following the direction of the area. So this is also curved, so we want the darks to be at the base of what won't get the light because it's the furthest away from the light, and then it lightens up as we go. So I'm just following that direction, and this is all an oval stroke, so I'm not doing any straight lines or any kind of drag. This is small ovals, really fast. In fact, I did move quickly even at regular speed because I didn't want any blobs, so I'm trying to maintain my speed. And the same for when I'm going lighter. I'm moving even quicker, even though the video, because there is so much, I think I spent 7 hours on the skull alone, and that would make for a very, very long video. So that's why I had to speed it up. So oval, oval, oval strokes. That is what I do for all of the socket areas, and then we'll move on to the flowers. I do want to note that a lot of times when you see me pause in the video where I'm lifting my pen, I'm looking at my reference because I've got a lot of detail in this pattern. Like, this is probably one of the most detailed patterns I've ever done. And so I'm having to lift my pen and look at my reference photo, make sure I'm going in the right direction, I'm getting the right shape. So though it doesn't look like it's taking very long, I'm actually spending more time looking at my reference photo than I'm actually burning, and that is completely normal, especially when you're working on an area you've never done before. You're just starting off and you're trying to make sure that everything is in the right place. Totally okay. In fact, you should spend more time looking at your reference, making sure you have your bearings and taking your time. This will also help cut down on any perceived mistakes because you went in the wrong place. And I did make a couple mistakes. Made something smaller than it should have, but those are easy to fix. I tried very hard not to put things in the wrong place. So taking that time to look at your reference, paying close attention. I went between what's going to be my final total value reference and my lighter one to make sure I had things in the right place. So I've moved over to the small ball tip to get into the small areas, and I bounce back and forth because I noticed something, so I want to go ahead and touch it off before I forget about it. So that's why you see me bouncing around, trying to get those places where not standing out as much to my brain. Some people will work like that. Others will complete a small area completely. But that's just not how I work. However works for you, that's what you do. I prefer to go 3/4 away for the tonal value and block in all my details. Now we're going to switch over to the light flower detail that was started in the live. I used both the small ball tip, I think I used the small ball tip, the medium ball tip, and the 9M modified writer, and I'm actually doing more stippling than I am any other stroke. It's stippling is just dots, but that allows the texture for this lighter area. So I use a lot of stippling and just go into the base of the flowers just to block them in. And I do end up darkening some areas in the live so that you can see what it does for the flowers. But we are going to move over to the dark details because I didn't focus on those in the live. Both the live you can watch and see how I did that. So now I'm going darker. I'm still only running the pen between 1/2 and 1.5 because it's basswood. It accepts the heat better and lower heat. So if you have a problem with your pen running hot because you're whatever brand burner you're using, so you can see the little dots I'm making there that fills it in and gives it texture, while also the closer the dot, the darker the area is going to be, and the larger the dot, the darker it's going to be. The smaller the dot and further away, the lighter it's going to be. But you can also control how dark that dot is as well. This is a darker area of the reference photo, so I'm just trying to lay those in so I don't lose them. So a lot of dots going on, and if it's a bigger area, I'm also doing ovals and squiggles because the texture of this awesome photo lends itself to it and helps add the texture. But what I'm trying not to do is straight lines. Now, if you really lowered your heat with this particular one, you could get away with the skull with doing a bit of outlining, but you'd have to go very light and be very careful with that so that you could blend out those lines later on for the piece. And once I get this right side filled in, because in the live I discussed that I was going to put the flowers on the dark right side and then darken them, as I'm laying this area in, I'm starting to change my mind and decide how I want to fill it out. And that, things change as you're going along. You work it more and you realize things may not work out the way you want it to, so you do a little bit of change. So this is where I had changed my mind and decided to go dark with the areas that you can't see in the final photo. That will save me some time. That I threw up the temperance card because a little bit of patience is needed here to make sure, because of how I laid out my pattern, I need to make sure I don't take out areas that do need some light hitting it. So it's paying attention to my reference, taking my time, but I do think this is the easier way to do it, and putting in the jaw area, and then I can build out from that. I've bumped up my heat, I believe, with the 18S spear shader. I'm at 2.5 to block in, but this area blends in with the dark background. They become one and the same, so it's going to go much darker. But with basswood especially, if you go with a lower heat to first block in your darks and then raise the heat and go darker for those dark areas, it will blend better, it will give it more depth, it will look less flat, and it also give you more of the brown brown burn versus the gray burn. So that is what I've decided to do. I've switched over to the large, I believe that's the large spoon shader, and I'm just blocking in, going over the graphite, because I'm not going to see the graphite in the dark burn. So that's why I'm not worried about erasing it. But I also have to figure out where the lines are, because some areas are receiving light and other areas aren't. Some of the teeth are, other teeth aren't. So what I'm doing is I'm not going full all the way to the edge yet. I'll come back later and basically find the edge of where the dark starts and the light stops, and put that in so that I can blend out, and you see that more in the final piece, or at the end of the video. It's not the final piece because this is gonna go darker, but I am starting to see more depth in the eye sockets because I do have the value differences in there, and this is just me going, okay, this area is dark, I don't see it in the photo, so I'm taking it out. If you don't see it in the regular photo without lightening it, then take it out. It'll just make your life a lot easier and feel less confused about the pattern. So if you haven't drawn it out yet, I highly recommend doing what you did what I did at the beginning, and block out where the darks really are, and don't even worry about putting those flowers in, because this is a round object. It's a 3D object. So where some of the flowers are on the edge, those are moving away from the camera. So in the photo they're stretched, they're distorted, they may not make sense to your brain as flowers until you start putting them in. So if there's a dark area, it's just easier to just go ahead and put it in. It'll save you some time. It'll actually save me a lot of time. And then I'll darken it when I darken the dark background, and blend it all together, and I shouldn't have any lines based on my thinking. Now, I've never done a skull. This is the first skull I've done, but based on other things that I've worked on over the 15 years, just because I haven't done this subject doesn't mean I can't do this subject. It's taking what you've learned from other pieces and applying, and it's a little bit of slow down and pay attention to what you're doing, and especially until you feel comfortable with what you're doing, and then you can start moving ahead quicker once you have a better idea of the subject. So here I'm just putting in the darker edge of the flower. You guys will know if I'm off because you're doing the pattern the same as I am and I'm pointing it out. But anybody else just looking at your piece, they're not going to notice if you got the flower a little small, or it's only got 4 petals instead of 5. They're just not going to notice those little details like you will, or others who are also doing the pattern. So cut yourself some slack. It's okay if you're a little off on one of the flowers or the details, because people they're not going to notice. It'll still come out looking great. It'll still look like it's a carved skull that's decorative and raised, and that's what we're going for. So I'm just putting in where my darks are. I'm not going fully dark, and I did take out some of the graphite just so I could get a clearer view of the burn, especially when you're going with the lighter burn. If the graphite's still down, it won't read. The burn itself doesn't read like the burn will once the board's clean, so I do like to try to get the graphite off as quick as I can, because I can always adjust later. I do prefer to block in first. See, here I went a little too dark, kind of lost an edge, so I just used a knife to clean it up a little bit. If it's a high highlight, I can always go back in with white and kind of reshape it, so I'm not worried about it. And now the rest of this is going to be blocking in all the little flowers, and there are a lot of them, making sure I get them in the right place. Not as worried about the darks yet. I do start putting them in. I find myself darkening, going, and then having to stop myself and go, I'm just blocking in. I don't have to worry about that dark yet. Some of them I did use lines for, and that's because the shadow reads as a line, so it's okay to put that line in. I know I'm always telling you don't do lines, but sometimes that's just how the shadow reads. It's very close to the object and dark, so it reads as a line, so it's okay to put it in as a line. Some of them I do still try to do the dots because it reads a little bit better, but I'm also going to go back in and do some shading with the spear shader later to push back some of those flowers to give them the direction that they need, because we're on a curved surface. They need to look curved. Some of the petals are not going to be as bright as others because they're moving away from the light that's coming in on the left of our photo, and that's what we really need to pay attention to and not lose. So I'm just putting in all the stuff. This is just blocking in, and I think it looks better in person than it does on camera now that it's all blocked in, but there will be adjustments later. So the skull is not fully done, because there's still so much to go on with getting it right. And because on the left side, that whole area is much lighter because that's where the light's hitting. The dark background is really what's going to make sure the skull pops on that side. Leaving those lights is what's going to give us the 3D effect. Plus, the skull is on books with a black velvet background, so all those darks is going to bring the skull forward. So more and more dots over and over again, squiggles, dots, squiggles, dots. So here I'm just trying to put where the shadows are up against the edge of the flowers and leaves or squiggles, swirls. I think that would be the word. And just finishing blocking in. Whew. Got it all blocked in. This is what our reference photo looks like, and then it's going to transfer over to where I'm at now. I'm not too far off. The photos are kind of a different size, so I'm happy about that. And I want to thank you for watching the video. Thank you to Greg, our highest special toasty. Happy burning! Bye!